Greetings, math fans. All right, so this is the start of Chapter 10. We're kind of skipping along here a little bit from Chapter 9. We'll get to that later. But Chapter 10 is, the first part of it is actually really good comparison to the last chapter we did with radicals. Okay, so this is, again, Chapter 10. Okay, so we're going to learn two different things today. We're going to learn two formulas, and the first thing we're going to learn is the distance formula. Now, basically, if I give you guys 2 points here, if I give you a point here and a point here, okay, and I actually find the distance between those, but you were able to figure out this distance here, and you're able to figure out this distance here. How would you figure out the distance between, how would you figure out this distance? Well, you guys should kind of remember, this is from last chapter, you'd actually use the Pythagorean Theorem, right? Okay, you'd use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, so we're going to kind of use a formula that's based on that. So let me write this formula out. It's the distance is equal to, so it's really d squared, but I'm going to say distance equals the square root, because I'm going to take the square root already, and it's going to be x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. This is it, man. This is gold. Okay, so I have kind of a clever way to memorize this. Though you really can just put it on your purple sheet. You don't really even need to memorize it, as long as you, as long as you have it someplace, right? Okay, so kind of the way I had to kind of memorize it, it's kind of a little weird, but see, it's got subtract and then add and subtract. Kids kind of get that wrong with the addition and subtraction. So I call it, it's a sassy formula. So sassy formula, subtract, add, subtract. Okay, kind of remember that. Okay. Anyway, you got it in front of you. You're good to go. Let's actually use that formula now to do a problem. All right, so I'm going to erase this, but I'm going to write the formula back on top again because we are going to use it. Okay. So the distance is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. All right, so here's the deal. Given some points here. I'm going to give you guys 2 comma negative 1 and 5 comma negative 5. All right, that looks pretty reasonable. Okay, so this is what I want you guys to do. This is like super important. Okay, if this is my first year teaching, I'd say, yeah, he doesn't really know what he's talking about. Okay, but this is the best way to do the problem. Okay, because I've been teaching for 21 years. All right, so you're going to write d is equal to, and then you're going to do this, and you're just going to put a skeleton here, and you're going to put subtract, add, subtract. You need to write this down first, guys. I cannot stress this enough. And the only reason is because, see, you got all these negatives in here. If you don't write this down there, it's so easy to lose the negative, right? Because you got minus signs, you got negative signs, and it's really easy to lose it. So please write this down just the way I have it right now, and then fill it in. So I'm actually going to even leave it there. I'm just going to write this out again. So d is equal to, like that, subtract, add, subtract, and now I'm going to fill it in. So here's the question. Which ones, right, we have x2 and x1 and y2 and y1. Which one's our first point and which one's our second point? Well, that's a really good question. So if I gave you guys 2 points here, put it in green. If I gave you a point here and a point here, and I said, hey, how far is it from here to here? And you said, just looking at your, depending on how big your screen is, you said, oh, it's 2 inches, Mr. Curvis. I said, okay, well, how far is it from here to here? What do you mean? It's about 2 inches again. Okay, so here's the deal. It doesn't matter which one's first or which one's second. That's it. It doesn't matter which one's first or second. So you can't mess that up because the distance is the same whether you go from one to the other or the other to the first one. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, so, but label it, because you need to kind of label it to get everything organized here. So this is, I'm going to say this is x1, y1. and this is x2, y2. Okay? So literally, you're going to plug things into this into the formula now, right? We have our skeleton that I did in the upper right-hand corner here, and now we're just going to plug stuff in. So I'm going to say it's x2 minus x1, so it's 5 and a 2. Okay, and then y2 minus y1, negative 5 and negative 1. Okay, we didn't lose any of the negatives because we just put it in the way it was, and we had the negatives already, the minus sign's already in there. Okay, so it's a matter of just simplifying. I don't care if you put this in your calculator, it doesn't matter to me. So we're going to say 5 minus 2 is 3. So it's 3 squared plus, and this becomes plus here, right? So negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4. So I'm going to put negative 4 squared. And you guys remember, please, and I've seen this on tests, quizzes, people forget to put that in parentheses. Negative 4 squared, it's got to be in parentheses to give you 16. If you just do negative 4 squared, you're going to get negative 16, and it's wrong. Okay, don't do that. None of these answers will come out to be a negative. It doesn't make sense. How far is it? Oh, it's negative 5 inches. What? Okay, it's 5 inches. Everything's positive. Okay, so let me keep going here. So it's the square root of 3 squared, which is 9, plus 4 squared, which is 16. So d is equal to the square root of 25. So d is equal to 5. And that's the answer to this problem. Okay, it kind of took a long time for the first problem because I just want to show you everything. Okay, but it really is not that bad. Now, obviously, sometimes we're going to get a radical that's not a perfect square, but we know how to deal with those. Okay, so anyway, this is kind of the general scoop. So let's do a few more problems here. Make sure you guys are good to go, and things won't come out nice and even either. Okay. All right. So coordinate is going to be negative 6 comma negative 2 and negative 4 comma 0. Okay, so let's do the problem. So I'm going to do distance is equal to the square root of, and I'm going to write this in there, squared, and then subtract, add, subtract. Okay, so let's label these. So this is x1, y1. Doesn't matter the order. Remember that? x2, y2. Okay, let's fill it in. Okay, so here I can write my distance formula out here just to help you guys out again. So x2 minus x1. You should have it in front of you, but it's okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so if I fill it in, x2 is negative 4, x1 is negative 6, y2 is 0, and y1 is negative 2. All right, so that becomes positive, and that becomes positive right here. Okay, even if you didn't know that, you can put in your calculator, negative 4 minus negative 6. That's fine. Doesn't affect anything. So we're going to get negative 4 plus 6 is 2, and 0 plus 2 is 2. Okay, that's not bad. So distance equals the square root of 4 plus 4. So distance is the square root of 8. And of course, you need to simplify it. Okay, so square root of 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. So those come out, and you have 2 root 2. That's what square root of 8 is. Okay, so that means your distance is 2 root 2. So let me talk a little bit real quickly because it's important. This is an exact answer. You're going to see both types of problems in your homework. That's an exact answer because it's either a whole number, which like the first example came out to be 5, or it's got a radical in it, like 2 root 2 here. Okay, so that's an exact answer. A decimal answer, or if I ask you to round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, we've done that. We did it last chapter. Round to the nearest hundredth is you're going to actually put this in your calculator. Okay, but you're going to type in, I mean, you could put 2 root 2, but just do the square root of 8. So you're going to say square root of 8 in your calculator, which I'm going to do right now. Square root of 8 hit equals, I got 2.8284. And rounding it, you guys should look at this number and say, oh, I got to round it up, right? So it's going to be 2.83, and that's your answer. So this is rounding, and that is an exact answer on top. Okay, you should know how to do both. So I'm going to do a couple more examples, and I'm going to do both as we do the problem. Okay, so this is not bad, right? Let's keep going here. Okay, so let's try another one here. 4 comma negative 6 and negative 2 comma say negative 2 comma 2. Okay, so again I'm going to write the distance formula here real quickly. X2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, so remember, I'd like you to do this, put the skeleton in there, subtract, add, subtract, sassy formula. Okay, and let's label it. This is x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, let's put everything in here. X2, so it's going to be negative 2 and 4. The other one's going to be 2 and negative 6. All right, so distance equals negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. And 2 plus 6 is 8. So distance equals 36 plus 64. Oh, look at that. This one comes out to be a nice one. That's okay. So if I ask you for an exact answer, that would be the answer. And if I ask you for a rounded answer, that would be the exact answer too, or the rounded answer. Okay. All right. That was a pretty nice one. Let's do one that comes out not as nice. No big deal. So again, I'm going to keep writing this out here. It takes 2 seconds to write it. All right. Your coordinates are negative 4 comma 7, and let's do negative 8 comma 1. Okay, that should be pretty good. All right, so D is equal to, so label it x1, y1, x2, y2. D is equal to the square root. Do your parentheses. Again, it's super easy to write this in here and then put the numbers in. Okay, x2, so negative 8, and x1, negative 4. Y2 is 1, y1 is 7. All right, so that becomes a plus here. So negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4 squared. And 1 minus 7 is negative 6. So plus negative 6 squared. Okay, so we square those. Again, make sure you use parentheses. Nothing is negative here. So it's 16 plus 36. So distance equals the square root of 52. Now you should start breaking it up. You can say, oh, I can divide. I have my calculator here. I can say 52 divided by 4, or divided by 2. Right? So I'm going to start dividing it by 2. So square root of 52 is going to be 26 times 2, and 26 is 13 times 2 times 2. Okay, that's all I can do. 13 you can't break up anymore. So I'm going to pull that out. So I wind up getting 2 root 13. And that's it. That's my exact answer. If I ask you for a decimal answer, put the square root of 52 in your calculator. Square root of 52. And that gives you 7.2111. So if I ask you to round to the nearest hundredth, it's 7.21. That's it. Okay? So that is distance formula. Okay, gave you a bunch of examples. Make sure you put your skeleton out there and plug it all in and simplify it, and you're good to go. All right. So I have one more thing to teach you guys. That being the distance formula, I have one thing, and it's called the midpoint formula. Okay, and that's actually a pretty easy formula as well. This is the midpoint formula. Okay, so before I even do the midpoint formula, if I gave you 2 points, one here and one here, and I said, hey, I want to find the middle of this. Well, if I told you this was, let's say, 8 feet between these, how would you find the middle? Well, wouldn't you divide it by 2? Yeah. Okay, so you get 4 feet. So what if I told you another thing? Let's say you got a 90% on a test, and then you got an 80% on the test. And I said, hey, what's the midpoint? What is the midpoint the same thing as saying for 2 tests? Instead of saying the midpoint, I don't say midpoint, I would say what? Oh, the average. What's the average of the 2 tests? Well, wouldn't you add those together? 90 plus 80, and wouldn't you divide it by 2? So if you do that, you'd get 85. Okay? So that's what the midpoint formula is. So I'm going to write it out here. And again, you can put it on your purple sheet, but it's basically x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So it's a formula that you kind of know, you have to know, but truly, guys, it's the average of the x's and the average of the y's. That's all you do. You take the average of each of them. Okay, so if I give you an xy coordinate, I give you 2 of them, you take the average of the x's and the average of the y's. That's all it is. Okay, so if I said like -4 comma 3 and 2 comma -1, and I actually find the midpoint, literally I'm going to put it in parentheses here, but I'm going to say -4 plus 2 over 2. That's the average of the x's, comma 3. Now, I know it's minus, and you want to say 3 plus a -1, but it's really just 3 minus 1. You can say 3 plus a -1. I don't care. But whatever, if it's either add or subtract, but you're always adding, but sometimes if there's a minus, then you're going to subtract, right? So 3 minus 1 over 2. And then you simplify it. So -4 plus 2 is -2 over 2. And 3 minus 1 is 2 over 2. So you always want to simplify this. So the answer to this is -1 comma 1. And that's your midpoint. Okay, it's really easy. All right, so let's do another one here. Because I just want to, show you a couple examples here. Remember, midpoint is just the average. So I'm going to write it out here. x1 plus x2. And again, you can have this on your purple sheet. I don't care. So y1 plus y2 over 2. Okay, so here's your coordinate. -8 comma 3 and -2 comma -7. All right, so it's -8 minus 2, really it's -8 plus -2 over 2, and 3 minus 7 over 2. So you get -10 over 2. Again, use your calculator, I don't care, and -4 over 2. So you reduce to -5 comma -2. That's your answer. Okay? Really pretty easy. Now, what happens if you have decimals? Well, or fractions that can't be reduced. So let's do one of those. No big deal. So your coordinate is -5 comma 3 and -2 comma -2 comma let's say 9. All right, so we're going to say -5 minus 2, where it's -5 plus -2 over 2, comma 3 plus 9 over 2. So -5 minus 2 is -7 over 2, and 3 plus 9 is 12 over 2. So you know what? I don't care. Put it in your calculator. If it's an odd number, just give me a decimal. I don't care. So you can say it's either -3.5, or if you said -3.5, I don't care. But don't leave it as a mixed number like this, or even call it an improper fraction, right? Where it's got a fraction on the bottom. Okay, comma 6, and that's your answer. Okay, pretty easy. So let's do one more problem that has everything. All right, because that's what you're going to see on a quiz and test. So I'm going to say find the distance, exact and decimal, and find the midpoint. So here's your problem. 2 comma negative 3 and 6 comma 3. Okay, I think that's going to be good. Let's actually make this 1. Oh, it's 1. Yeah, okay, let's do that. I like that one a little bit better. It's going to come out to be a little bit different answer. Okay, so let's do midpoint, because we just learned that. Midpoint, again, super easy. 2 plus 6 over 2, comma, negative 3 plus 1 over 2. So that's going to be 2 plus 6 is 8 over 2, comma, negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2 over 2. So the answer is 4, comma, negative 1. Cool. That's the midpoint. And let's do the distance. So I'm going to label this x1, y1, and x2, y2. And remember your distance, I'm going to put the skeleton here. Okay, so it's x2 minus x1, so it's 6 and 2, and 1 and negative 3. So we have 6 minus 2 is 4, so it's 4 squared, and that becomes plus, so plus 4 squared. So distance equals square root of 16 plus 16, so the distance equals square root of 32. Now you got to simplify that. All right, so remember 32 is 16 times 2, 16 is 8 times 2, 8 is 4 times 2, and 4 is 2 times 2. So we got a lot of 2's here. This is all 32. So that means I can pull out 2 pair here. And so I get distance is equal to, if I pull those out, I get 4, right? 2 times 2 is 4 root 2. There we go. That's your distance. And then if I ask you for a round to the nearest hundredth, I'm just going to put in my calculator right now. Square root of 32 gives me 5.6568. 5. Because just put a couple of decimals out there, and you guys should look at this number right here and go, oh, it's bigger than 5 and bigger, so the answer is 5.66. Okay? So that, math fans, is the distance formula and the midpoint formula. Hopefully you guys are good to go with that. Beginning of the chapter, and you have an outstanding day. Adios.